Okay, so to begin, go for a spirited drive to heat up the engine. The minute we get back, we will be taking the intake off to reach the unused port in the intake manifold.
Darren from GTI Mod Blog here, and in this video we're going to be installing a Osier vent mount and a boost gauge from GlowShift. So you want to begin by uninstalling your stock airbox to give you a little more space. We put a microfiber in the intake duct just to make sure that no dust or debris would get in during the installation. Then we just pull up on the intake box and it'll come off the grommets. The engine cover is even more easy with just 4 grommets holding it in that you just pop up by pulling upwards. Next step is to locate the unused intake manifold port and simply tap into it with the screw that was included in your kit. This is why it's important to drive your car before you do this, so the intake manifold is warm and it's easy to puncture. The next step is to assemble your boost tap. It's different for every boost tap, but mine had 3 ports, but since I was only installing a boost gauge, I only needed one of them. Next, I just attached the assembled boost tap to the intake manifold port and tightened the C-clip on there. Next, we had to put the tube onto the end of the boost gauge so we could run boost into the gauge. Haha. Now is a good time to remove the drawer under your steering column for added space when wiring up the boost gauge. Also pop off the side cover. Be careful that you don't pull it out sideways like Miles does right here, or you can risk cracking the clips, which is expensive and annoying. After that, you're going to want to pop open the AC vent. This is by far the most difficult part of the installation, and many people find themselves spending over 15 minutes on this part. Here's that tricky part I was telling you guys about. There are 4 spring clips in there, and Miles was having trouble because he would keep getting them engaged and then they would disengage by themselves. We eventually did break a few of them and get the assembly out though, which allowed us to test out the new mount. At this point, the boost gauge was all in, and I was really liking the way it looked. Next, you have to run it through the firewall and then wire it all up, and you should be done.
So what I did here was, there's this little piece right here. God, it goes all the way back there. And I just removed this screw on this torque screw, and you just slide it out like that.
Inside the engine bay, Miles removed the battery as well as the battery holder just to get more space for when I punched through the firewall so he could feed the hose through.
It looks like this normally, but then if you peel this back a little bit, And the black part too. You can see that little hole. That's the entrance to your firewall.
Where? Like up there? Oh, okay.
That hole right there. And you gotta use a punch. So I found
So
this
a big ass
like,
nail, basically.
Right here we connected the tube coming from the boost tap to the tube going to the boost gauge, and we did this with 3 zip ties and some electrical tape. So not the best solution, but it's been holding up so far pretty well. Next up is wiring for the boost gauge, so actually getting power from the car to the boost gauge, and we can do this by tapping into a constant source and a switch source. So what this means is a fuse that is always on with your car, even when your car is off and the keys are out of it, and another fuse that is only on when your car is in accessory mode and when it's running. So how do we do this? We actually used electrical tape to hold down the negative to the frame because it was not long enough to reach a bolt that we could unscrew with a socket wrench. For the fuses, we used ATA circuits, which allowed us to expand an existing fuse into 2 fuses. It's worth mentioning that one of the wires, I believe the yellow, is used to dim during nighttime by hooking it up to your headlight source. We chose not to do this because we didn't know how and because we didn't want to.